When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, downloading, and subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this podcast, we're going to ask the questions. How young is too young to get married? How young is too young to have a drink? And how young is too young to have sex? So what I want you to do, sit back, relax, turn this up really, really loud. We'll drop the theme music and we'll get the podcast jumping. Let's get it.
When I'm experiencing true love?
Well, if it is true love, why don't you get married?
Ma, this is the 70s. People live together first. That's the only way to find out if a marriage is going to work.
The only way you're going to find out if a marriage works is to get married.
Ma, nobody buys a pair of shoes without trying them on.
And nobody's going to buy used shoes either.
And just like that, we're back. As I mentioned at the top, we're talking about how young is too young. You just heard a clip there from Good Times. Shout out to Thelma and Florida Evans. I came to this idea about, how young is too young is I was listening to an old podcast that I did. I was a guest on the podcast. Is the mic still on? Shout out to the crew over there. And there was a question that came in, and the guy kind of referenced in his question, he was asking for advice about getting engaged. And he mentioned that he and his girlfriend had been together for 5 years, and he was thinking about getting engaged, and he was 20 years old. And I thought to myself, and I said it out loud, like, that's really young to be thinking about getting married. And I answered the question. I made the suggestion that he should wait 5 more years. And everybody kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but I was honest. I think, that's kind of young. So it got me to thinking about this topic. And I think, obviously we all have to make that decision, if and when you decide to get married, or at least entertain the possibility of getting married. But I think, generally speaking, I would not recommend that anybody get married before the age of 25. And there's a couple of reasons why. Because I think first and foremost, you have to have an idea or a goal for, what it is that you think marriage is and how you plan to get to that goal. It's more than just, buying rings and, walking down the aisle. It's a whole lot more detailed than that. Marriage involves a lot of stuff. I mean, it really does. It entails so many things.
I'm a sports person. So I look at life like sports. And look at love like sports. I look at marriage like sports. And if high school football, you play on Friday nights, yes, your little girlfriend, little boyfriend thing, y'all mess around with her. But then you have some cats that graduate to Saturday football, college football. Stakes is a little higher. Is that the third?
Get to the pros and
get to the pros. It's only a few cats that get to the pros. Because pros involve money, it involves contracts, it involves lifelong commitments. It involves
drastic change.
It involves going to the film room. Look, this is what you're doing right here. This is what you got to fix.
Yeah, this is where you fucked up.
This is where you're at right here. And sometimes you can take somebody to the film room over and over, and they just don't.
Coach, I just can't make that block.
Coach,
I just can't make that block, Coach.
I just can't make that block, Coach. If you got to decide whether you gonna keep that player or you gonna let that player go.
So, and when you look at that from that perspective right there, I think you have to have an idea as to how you're going to get married and, more importantly, where you want your marriage to go. Full disclosure, I'm married. At the time of this recording, I've been married 17 years. Now, I will say that, I say that in saying this, that doesn't make me necessarily a guru, if you will, on marriage, because I'm not. I'm still trying to figure this thing out just like everybody else. I take it day by day, and I think that's probably the most easiest thing to say. But I think when you're young, I think at let's say 20, 21, most people are still trying to kind of find their way, whether they be in college or whatever the situation is. Or if they're in the workforce and they're trying to kind of find their way career wise. And it's not to say that you can't get married at that age. I just think a lot of times people are still what I call in the world. You know what I'm saying? You still want to do certain things. You still want to party. You still want to kick it. You may or may not be that serious about relationships. And I think, by the time you hit 25, I think most people start settling into, or at least heading in the direction of where they want to go individually. Now, marriage is all about the collective. It's about also, maintaining your individuality within the collective. So I think you have to have a goal and an idea as to where you want to go. And then obviously the person that you're looking to get married to should share that goal. I think, for somebody under 25, I think you may or may not have the ideas fully set in place and everything in moving in that right direction. And so, this podcast, I'm just going to give you some game. I mean, I kind of pride myself as an OG, if you will. I'm just going to give you some game. I just think you probably, particularly that particular person in that situation and anybody else listening to me, I think you should wait. I think anytime after 25, I think you have a better idea and a better grasp as to where you're going. And then you can bring more to the table as far as what it is that you seek. And then hopefully the person that you're marrying is seeking the same thing and you can travel that path together. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I think I see people make is planning for the wedding, but not for the marriage. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I saw that, and I get it, it's kind of like the end thing. And I tell people all the time, a wedding only lasts 25 minutes. If you don't believe me, check your watch the next wedding that you go to, from the start of Here Comes the Bride until he says you may now kiss the bride, or he or she says you may now kiss the bride. It's about 25 minutes. So a wedding, the actual wedding, does not take long at all to happen. Could be quicker than that. And for the most part, just a little sidebar, most weddings, at least the ones that I've gone to, almost every single one of them, including mine, doesn't start on time. Now, what I mean by that is it could be 5 minutes late. It could be 10 minutes late. I think mine was maybe 6 minutes off from the time it's supposed to start. But, you're dealing with people. Nothing starts on time. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think a lot of people, they plan for the wedding and, and they get these grandiose ideas from what they see on TV and reality TV, and, you want to post pictures and everything like that. And that's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great that you can have other people share in your wedding experience. But I think, sometimes that idea of planning for the wedding and not for the marriage, particularly when you're younger, you don't necessarily see it, in the way that I think it should be seen as a marathon and not a sprint. Because if you're in it for the long haul, then yeah. And then that's something that, you would have talked with your prospective spouse about, about the longevity and how long, if you really, really want till death do us part. But yeah, some people are just like that, honestly. And I see it all the time. And it's like, I've learned to keep my mouth shut. So, I don't, if someone asks me my opinion, then obviously I give it to them. But yeah, you can't plan for the wedding. I mean, don't spend so much time planning for the wedding and don't plan for the marriage. Because if not, once the dust settles and the novelty of just getting married, once that settles, you got to do some married shit. You got to make some plans. You got to make some goals. You got to, move some things and go in the right direction. Commingling assets, maybe creating a family. All of those things usually come, within a marriage. So you best to be prepared. And, planning for a wedding, that doesn't help it at all. And the last thing, reason why I think, you can't be too young to get married is because society will fool you. What I mean by that is that society will tell you that you need to be married by a certain age. Like I was listening to this Rhapsody CD, and she mentioned in one of her songs that, some of her friends were approaching the age of 30 and were bothered by the fact that they weren't married yet. And that's something that obviously as a man, I didn't experience. And by the time I was 30, I was already married. I got married at the age of 28. So I was beyond 25. And so, I was, about to slide into my 30s. And honestly, that worked for me. I know people who got married younger than that. I know people who got married later than that. I think I got married on time. In fact, I'm honest with myself and know that I got married on time. And I didn't get married any time sooner than I probably should have, or later for that matter. I think it's paramount that, you can't let society dictate, your time frame. And I know that this happens with women a lot, and I'm not blaming any women, but, society will tell you that you should be married and have, 2.2 kids and have a house with a white picket fence by the age of 30. And, realistically, that might not be your journey. But I think sometimes, when you're very young, you don't see that stuff. And, and it's a goal and an ambition to get, rush down the aisle. But honestly, if you want longevity and you want to, have something that will sustain, you got to be a certain age and certain level of maturity. And I think if you're not 25, you're not old enough to. Now, granted, you're old enough legally to get married by that time, but I think, I wouldn't recommend anybody under the age of 25 getting married. Not if you really, really want to be in it for the long term. And of course, obviously it goes without saying, being married after 25, nothing guarantees you because, hell, the divorce rate is 50%. So, it's hit or miss. But you have two people coming from two different directions, two different walks of life, if you will. And they're, trying to make a path as one, until the end of time. And you have obstacles and other things that come in the way, and it's how you navigate it and, kind of push through it, if you will. So, yeah, my opinion, how young is too young? If you're under 25, that's too young to get married. Let's see, to drink. I think if you're under 21, you're too young to drink. Now, I know, legally, most people, most people, I won't say most people, some people that I know, some of you listening, just a few of you listening, probably had your first drink before you turned 21. Full disclosure, I played football in high school, right? And then I played football in college at South Carolina State University. And so, because I played ball, for me, just on a personal note, I didn't need alcohol. It wasn't something that I gravitated towards. It wasn't something that I wanted. So, in a nutshell, I did not have my first drink until I was 26 years old. I know you're thinking like, what? How does he go to a black college and not take a drink? I just didn't. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something that I felt the need to do. I would be lying if I said that, my background probably played a small role in it. And what I mean by that is both of my grandfathers were alcoholics. So like, and my paternal grandfather, he actually lost his voice from years and years of drinking. So he had to speak with like a little machine or whatever the thing is. And I remember talking to him on the phone because I never saw him before, but I remember talking to him on the phone before he passed and just hearing him talk. I mean, it sounded like I was talking to a computer or something. But I'll say this, I think my past may have had something to do with it, but that's me. I realized that I was the special case, if you will. But I was also the designated driver for most of my teammates, which was cool, and the fact that my friends drank didn't bother me at all. People respect the fact that I didn't drink. That being said, I think 21 is the right time if you so choose to. And the reason why I say that is because, one, you have to figure out, can you handle drinking? Obviously, there's a certain level of responsibility. You can't obviously get behind the wheel of a car and drink and drive. But you want to make sure that you are able to handle it and not, be doubled over a toilet praying to the porcelain gods, if you will. And, if you drank before or drank heavily, it's probably happened to you once or twice. It's happened to me once. I've gotten drunk once, and I talked about it in one of the first podcasts that I did. So, it was called The Last Time That I Got Drunk. And actually the first and last time that I got drunk. Shout out to the strip club. But you can go back and listen to that podcast. So yeah, I think you have to figure out, can you handle it? Obviously, you want to drink in moderation. You want to drink responsibly, and you want to drink to the point where, you're not getting yourself sick, or even worse, getting, to the point where, you are, it's becoming a habit and it's something that you can't avoid. It's something that you feel like you need. So I think 21 is a great time really for you to get an idea as to what it is that you want and how much you want of it. I even to this day, and I've said it on different podcasts, I am very much a social drinker. Like I might have it, like, let's say the weekend comes, I might have a drink on Friday and I might not drink again for another month. And I've never been the kind of guy to come home and be like, oh, I got to drink a beer. I had a hard day at work. And first and foremost, I don't drink beer. So, I'm pretty much, mixed drink guy, really, really big in red wines right now. So, excuse me. So red wine. So anybody out there who, if you have if you have some wines that you want to get rid of, some nice reds, or even some that you would like to recommend, hit me up. I'm all ears. But even then, I could have one. Like I've got a bottle now that I bought like 2 months ago, and I was supposed to crack it open. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I don't have to have it. But I'll say this, I do drink responsibly, and if I want to drink more than what I'm supposed to drink, I do it right there on the couch. You can't. One thing about it, you can't get DUIs on the couch. Always remember that. Can't get DUIs on the couch. And I think the other thing about being, too young is that we all have to have a reason as for why we want to take that drink. Maybe you want to take the edge off. Some people, maybe some of you listening become totally different people once you start drinking. Some people, they lose all inhibitions, they're free spirits, whatever the case may be. And some people grow to like who they are once they start drinking. So I think you have to ask yourself why. So I think that's important as well. And again, it's not like you have to, but I think at 21, you can make those kind of rational decisions. 18, 15, 14. Nah, honestly, you're not. At 15, you're probably drinking Mad Dog 2020, or at least some of the people that I knew, people I grew up with and went to college with. And I don't think Mad Dog 2020 is something that you want to be drinking at the age of 18. So, can you handle it? And then why do you want to drink? And then, obviously being responsible about it. So I think how young is too young to drink? Anything less than 21, you're really too young to drink. All right, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick commercial. We'll take a commercial and be back on the other side. We'll break it down and talk a little bit about sex before we get up out of here. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second.
Oh, I've heard about these guys with the really long horns. What are they called? I know this. It's right on the tip of my brain.
Longhorns.
Sure, Sam. Longhorns, right. Guess next thing you tell me this bird running down the road is a road runner.
That's exactly what that is, Chuck.
Bet you're gonna tell me these weeds tumbling around are called tumbleweeds.
What else would they be called, Chuck?
Charles.
You know what, Chuck? Let's play the quiet game.
Longhorns, right.
Yo, before I forget, it just dawned on me that this is my 100th episode. 100 episodes of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'll be honest, I did not know that until I just happened to look at this page here. But I want to say thanks. Just got to say thank you for listening. I didn't expect it to make it to 100 because I don't think you go in, with all kind of ideas or whatever like that. This is something that I really like doing. And I really appreciate everybody rocking with me. I know that there are numbers as to how many people actually listen. I look at the numbers maybe once a week. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not moved by the numbers. I like the fact that people, listen and rock with it. I'm surprised sometimes when people tell me that they listen, because sometimes people listen that I don't know who they are. In fact, most of the people that I know, family and friends, don't listen to it. And, to be honest, I'm totally cool with that. But yeah, thanks for rocking with the podcast. I'm going to keep doing it until, I just don't want to do it anymore. And before I forget, let me shout out some of my favorite podcasts that I rock with each week. The Tactless Know-It-Alls podcast. Shout out to Mia and Tyrone. Love their podcast. They drop every Monday. So check them out. Also, we did that shit with Maya and Babi, and love their podcast too. Shout out to the ladies. They have a really, really dope podcast. They drop every Monday as well. And last but not least, man, Back Talk Media. Love their podcast. They are funny as hell. C Rich, K, and my man Ray Ban. They actually podcast from here in Atlanta. So all of those podcasts, the Tactless Know-It-Alls podcast, We Did That Shit podcast, and Back Talk Media podcast can all be found wherever you're listening to this podcast right here. So once again, thanks to everybody who listens, and keep rocking with me. Peace.
When you wait forever for the cable guy, you get bored. When you get bored, you start staring out windows. When you start staring out windows, you see things you shouldn't see. When you see things you shouldn't see, you need to vanish. When you need to vanish, you fake your own death. When you fake your own death, you dye your eyebrows. And when you dye your eyebrows, you attend your own funeral as a guy named Phil Shifley. Don't attend your own funeral as a guy named Phil Shifley. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle, the 12 Kyle podcast, and we're asking the questions, how young is too young? As I mentioned before the commercial break, we're going to talk about how young is too young to have sex. This is tricky. And the reason why I say that is because I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most of the people listen, I would say probably about 98% of this, of my listeners have already had sex. So this doesn't necessarily include you, but maybe some of you listening and you're like me and you have kids and you want to impart some wisdom on them, or as I say, put them up on game. This is the podcast. I think this is tricky because I think more than anything else, if you tell them not to, they're going to do it anyway. I mean, you have to remember yourself at 15, 16, 17, 18. That being said, I think the only thing you really can do is really just kind of give your kids or whomever it is the wisdom and the knowledge that they're supposed to have going into it. But there is a such thing as being too young to have sex. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people can't deal with the emotional roller coaster that you go on after having sex. And you can always tell a guy or a girl, after the first time they've had sex, there's that immense attraction to that person, regardless of whether or not sex was good or not. Because for some, it just ain't that good the first time. But nonetheless, I think you have to be able to handle the emotional roller coaster that you go on, the connection that you feel with that person. And obviously, if you're, much younger, you don't want, that to stain you, if you will. And you want to be able to kind of process those thoughts and process those feelings. I know, just from personal experience, that's easier said than done. But I think you have to kind of figure your way through it. But it's not easy, particularly, if you're very young. So can I put an age on it? I don't know. It really just depends. I would be hypocritical to say, you should have sex until you're 18 because I wasn't 18. I think I was like almost 6. I was 15, almost 16. And what's funny is looking back on it now, like from my friends, I was probably like one of the last ones at 15, male and female. So, my friends are pretty fast, if you will. But yeah, I think there is an emotional roller coaster. I think, another thing, why you could be deemed too young to have sex is because, to be honest, you don't know what the hell you're doing. So, it could be something as simple as, putting a condom on right, or just, doing it right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at 16, 17, obviously you don't know what you're doing. You might be in there, giving a 60-30, you know what I'm saying? 60 pumps, 30 seconds. But, yeah, so it's not, you don't know what you're doing. That's another reason to wait. But then again, you could make the case that, if you don't know what you're doing at 15, if you don't have any experience, you're not going to know what you're doing at 20, so it's one of those things that you gotta practice, if you will. We're talking about practice here. But seriously, and I think last but not least, man, you got to be able to protect yourself and, not only protect yourself, but protect the person that you're with. And that goes without saying. I think a lot of times, particularly in this younger generation, these kids have, they're a little bit misguided as to what, in what actually deems sex, because, there's a generation of kids who have oral sex and they don't consider that sex at all. And technically it is. So, but yeah, I think, you have to protect yourself and protect your partner and so forth and so on. So, coming back to the question, how young is too young? If you're not mature enough to handle it, then that's too young, whatever that age is. I think that's the best thing that I can say about that. If you're not mature enough to handle it, then then you probably shouldn't be having sex, honestly. How will you know if you're mature? You'll know. Trust me, if you're listening and you haven't, and I do know, like for me, on a personal note, I know that I have some Twitter followers who are, in their teens, which is mind-boggling in and of itself. But yeah, if you guys are listening, or young ladies are listening, don't do it until you're ready, and you'll know when you're ready. And you don't need anybody to tell you when you're ready. You'll figure it out. So yeah, there's a such thing as being too young, and if you're too young, you'll know you're too young. Yo, thanks again for checking out the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. Catch you guys next time. 5Gs.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you work in university maintenance, Grainger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Grainger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more, and all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, visit Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.